Now, as we noted at the top of the show, NBC News poll numbers show the war with Iran and the economy are taking an increasingly political toll on President Trump, with his approval rating now sinking to a new low. NBC News chief data analyst Steve Kornacki joins us now with all of the details.
Kelly, let's dive right in with the reminder. It's the Decision Desk poll. This is of all adults, not just registered voters. A little bit of a wider net, but Donald Trump's approval rating here, you could see now down to 37% in this poll, 2 points lower than it was the last time we checked in. What's different from then to now? Of course, it's the start of the Iran war, which remains ongoing. Looks like it's hurting Trump politically, and you can really see that it is in this next question here, just the approval rating specifically on Iran, and that number is just 33%. By the way, a quarter of those who say they are Republicans are in the disapprove camp here when it comes to how the president is handling Iran. Another trouble area for the president right here. This has been the story of his second term. Inflation and the cost of living, only 32% there. The bright spot, if you want to call it that, for Trump here is this: border and immigration. This number of 44%, obviously, it's higher than these other areas. It's also higher than it was when we asked about border and immigration earlier this year, when ICE, when Minnesota, when those events were in the news. So the president has recovered a bit of his standing there. But again, still it's a majority disapprove when it comes to border and immigration. Looking more specifically here at Iran, what folks want to happen from here, clear majority here say they don't want anything else to happen. They want no further military action. A third of those who say they're Republicans fall into that camp. That's overseas. Domestically, we say cost of living front and center on people's minds. We ask them, what's your top economic concern to you and to your family? Inflation, cost of health care, those two combined, clear majority right there. Then there's this, gasoline taking center stage a bit. The cost of it, 29% say it's very serious. 36% say it's somewhat serious. Combined, that's 65%, almost two-thirds saying that gasoline, the cost of gas, is a serious problem for their families right now. One other interesting finding here, I think it gets to the question of foreign policy. It gets to sort of the direction of the two parties and a big shift that's going on. We ask folks, who do you sympathize more with when it comes to the Israelis and the Palestinians? Look, overall, dead even, 50-50 here. But look at some of these divides. One of them is partisan. Among Republicans, overwhelmingly, 81% side with the Israelis. Among Democrats, complete opposite. 75% say they sympathize with the Palestinians. So a clear partisan divide there. That Democratic number is the one that's moving big time toward the Palestinians. The other big movement we see is generational, that rising generation, Gen Z. Look at this. This kind of goes much more across the partisan spectrum. 3/4 basically of Gen Z say that they sympathize more with the Palestinians, Kelly.
And a big thank you to Steve for breaking all of that down for us. And we see President Trump's falling approval rating is being fueled in part by a growing number of younger Americans who are souring on the president and say the country is headed in the wrong direction. According to our poll, 76% of Gen Z Americans disapprove of the job President Trump is doing. And that's a 12-point shift since August, with 80% disapproving of his handling of inflation and the cost of living. And the top issue for Gen Z Americans, an 81% disapproval rating of his handling of the war with Iran. And that brings us now to our colleague, NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster, who has been speaking to students at Lake Michigan College in Benton Harbor, Michigan. I know this is a place you like to be, right out there talking to people, and you've been hearing about these issues. It's your happy place, Shaq. I know that. So tell us, what did you get a sense about this direction of the country that the students you're meeting with, what are they saying?
Kelly, you know me well. It is my happy place because we see those polling numbers, and I always want to know, how does it compare when you're talking to people? What more can you learn? And the conversations that I've been having here really reflect the frustrations that you see reflected in that poll. You have vast majority of people saying that they believe the country is moving in the wrong direction. Many of them pointing to the economy, saying they're intimately familiar with the price of gas, the price of groceries. And these are folks who, many of them, have a foot in the job market that they consider to be a tough job market. Listen to some of the conversations that I had when I asked them about the track of the country and the direction of the country.
I think the economy is not doing super well. I don't think that international relations are very well. Don't think that we are kind enough to one another. Seems like we're headed towards a hostile environment in our country.
I mean, it seems like the cost of living has gone up a little bit, just in terms of like the cost of food, maybe things getting taxed a little bit in terms of if they're getting imported from other countries.
I would say like ICE and deportation and all that kind of stuff that's going on. Prices of everything, just everything.
What are you noticing with prices?
Gas, groceries, rent, utilities, everything.
What direction are they?
Up.
Now, one word of caution is I did talk to some people who actually responded to the poll, and even though they said they feel the country is moving in the wrong direction, they said they didn't believe that was a reflection of policy. They pointed to other things like religion or other factors that made them respond that way.
I did hear a mention of foreign policy among the people you talked to. Did you get a sense that the war in Iran is of specific concern to many of them? Absolutely. And you mentioned about how 81% of young voters say that they disapprove of how President Trump is handling that war. About 65% saying that they strongly disapproved, which suggests that this is an issue that is animating for folks and has the ability to shift how they perceive President Trump and Republicans. Listen to some of those conversations.
When the war started in Iran, it kind of, I didn't expect that to happen. Because obviously his campaign was no wars, and of course he started a war. So that kind of really deterred my change on opinions.
It made you view him more negatively?
Yes.
I feel that we have kept allowing ourselves to get dragged into these proxy wars, and it does none of us home any good. And these people who live in these countries are suffering at our hands for what? There's no gain here. They didn't attack us.
Kelly, you know better than anyone there are midterm election implications to what you heard there. If young voters pull back or if they're animated, if they say they're angered by what they're seeing and this drives them to the polls, that can influence what ultimately happens, especially in these swing states like Michigan.
That's why it's so great to have you there getting the pulse of what young voters are thinking. So thank you for being on the ground for us, Shaq. We appreciate it.
You got it.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.